everyone, welcome to Lex Talk, World Talk Show presented by ClickAway Creators. Today we have Garima Sharma with us. Garima is a corporate lawyer currently based out of Hyderabad, India. She has been practicing law for last 4 years and has been a law enthusiast for as long as she can remember. Her areas of primary focus include domestic and foreign investments, mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, debt and equity financing, restructuring, corporate commercial transactions, master service arrangements, and infrastructure projects. She has worked extensively across various sectors such as manufacturing, energy, infrastructure, education, mining, real estate, seeds, pharmaceuticals, to name a few. Apart from her legal goals, that she'll be talking about in detail with us, she also aims to be able to contribute to the education sector by making education available to all the Indian society. And as Garima very strongly believes that education empowers one, liberates one, and education is the promise of progress and development of an individual, a society, a country, and the world at large. Let me introduce you to the woman of 21st century. Hello Garima, how are you?
Hi Bharti, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. Thank you for asking, Garima. It's a pleasure that we have you here with us. Let's quickly dive into your journey as a legal professional so far.
I'd like to say thank you for the wonderful introduction, first Bharti, and also I'm honored to be a part of this talk session. And I would like to thank ClickAway Creators for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Talking about my journey as a legal professional, like you said, I think I've been a law enthusiast for as long as I remember. And I think this takes me back all the way to high school when we are a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds struggling, not seeing much of the world, and yet making decisions about what education to choose and what career path to embark upon. So there I was also struggling with the same, trying to decide what my goal in life was going to be. And one day in a conversation with my family, I think I realized that I'm very intrigued by our laws, by our legal system, and at that age, mostly by the Constitution of India. And funnily enough, my parents told me that they are not surprised by this choice because I had been quoting my fundamental rights to them even before I was a teenager. So I guess that is the moment my journey in the legal profession began. And then before we knew it, I was in law school. I've also always had a knack for theater and public speaking, and I've won many accolades there. And I've always loved being on the stage or having people listen to me. And honestly, I think that quality has helped me throughout my profession, all the way from law school until now, because it gives me a sense of confidence and it gives me a sense of responsibility that if I want people to listen to me, then I must make sense. And for that, I must be well read and well prepared, all of which are very important qualities for our profession. I also had the opportunity to intern at different places when I was in law school and see all the different aspects of and different areas of law and then decide which stream to pick up. And I think that helped me to pursue corporate law. After law school, I was, I think, with a reputed law firm called Tatva Legal Hyderabad. And I've been lucky to have great mentors there who showed confidence in me and gave me the freedom to express my opinions and arguments openly. And then for the last year, I have been with J. Sagar Associates, and I've again been very fortunate to have handled some very good and quality transactions. And both these experiences put together have contributed vastly to my growth as a corporate lawyer. So I think there was never a moment that I thought that any of these law firms were going to be easy. And they definitely lived up to that. I mean, I've had sleepless nights together, 18-hour-long meetings, living out of the office for a few days, everything that you hear about corporate lawyers. So we've done all that. But at the same time, I think my passion drove me through all that, and I think it still drives me through all of that. And like Muhammad Ali said, he hated every minute of training, but he said, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. So I think that's what we've got to do. I think we've got to struggle, give it all, and then enjoy the rewards. So I think all in all, so far, my journey as a legal professional has been very enriching, and I can't wait to take the rest of it head on.
That sounds amazing. That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Garima, for throwing light on your journey. Now, for 4 years, you have been into the legal space. So please tell us about your memorable case and I'm sure every case teaches you something or the other, and you have key takeaways from every case that you fight for and you take up. But one of the most memorable case and particular takeaways from there.
I think it's going to be difficult to pick one because so far my journey has been so full of learning. Uh, so I think every case has taught me something or the other. But I think if I had to pick, maybe a couple and not one, if that's okay. There was this one case actually about a year and a half ago, uh, which was for the takeover of majority stake of a listed public entity, which was held by a multinational company based out of USA and Mexico. Uh, so this case technically had all the flavors of the big leagues, the vast businesses, big corporates, never-ending diligence and hours of negotiation, tough oppositions, tough stands, complicated regulations, you name it, and we had it all. And I was thrown in the deep end for the diligence and the negotiations quite a few times in this transaction. So I remember I took the lead for diligence here. And I also took on part of the negotiation independent of my seniors. And I received a lot of recognition and accolades for the same. And I think one of the reasons I find this case to be one of my memorable cases is I think I was a mere 25-year-old lawyer in a room full of all more senior and more experienced professionals. And I was able to showcase my skills in a manner where I had that room hearing me and incorporating my comments and submissions and suggestions and then respecting me as a lawyer. So I think that was one of the major reasons that this case has been a memorable one for me. Uh, then there was another case which involved a business transfer, again, of a manufacturing business from a company held by a multinational conglomerate to an Indian entity. And one of the major roadblocks in that case was a very tough labor union who was strongly opposed to the transaction moving forward due to some internal issues. So I remember I was in a conference room and I had the client with me, I had my seniors with me, and we had a virtual meeting with them because this is in COVID time. So we had a virtual meeting with the labor union. And I remember being in that conference room and everybody is struggling to get that labor union to listen. And so this company was based out of Uttar Pradesh. So I just thought I'd pick up my people skills. I spoke to them independently. I spoke to them in a language they'd understand and be more familiar with. And I think I neutralized that stubborn and persistent labor union for the deal to be move ahead and close smoothly. So again, I think being able to put your skills to use is always a good thing to remember, and a good way to remember your case and move forward with that. So yeah, and there was this one case which I was actually that's not more about me, but that was one of the first cases where I was representing a sitting government, and I had the opportunity to work with top level bureaucrats under intense timeline pressures. So that again was a very humbling experience to witness the brilliance of our bureaucracy and their willingness to make our country a better place every day. So, like I said, I think all my cases have taught me something in the process, and I'm grateful to be a part of each one of those. Uh, but to sum it up, if I have to look at my key takeaways from these transactions, I think it is to never limit oneself, to work hard, to be confident, and then to see it through. Because I think our profession is such where we have to widen our horizons every day for every new case, and we have to see things under a new and different lens every now and then. So if we narrow our limit or our approach or our abilities or our skills, I think we will be unjust to our profession, to our clients, and to ourselves. So yeah, I think my key takeaway is be confident and give it all you've got.
Thank you for answering that question wonderfully. Garima, why do we see the necessity for women lawyers and judges across the globe? I'm sure equality comes into the picture first, but what is your take on this?
I think I'm actually glad that you've asked me this question. Being a woman in this profession and also being nominated in the category of young and women lawyers for the upcoming awards in Dubai, I think it's an important question for me to answer because I believe law as a subject affects our daily lives more than we can see. Whether it's our basic rights as citizens or the economies or conflict and resolution or religion or even the climate. So every aspect of our life is somewhere touched by law, whether it's the law of the country, the society, and now even transnational laws. So I think a wide and balanced perspective is not just the need of the hour. I think it's a necessity. And that is why I principally believe that an equal representation of the genders is in the legal profession is imperative, I think, and it's indispensable today. Uh, Specifically talking about women, I think women are breaking the glass ceiling every single day in the professional world. I do not believe that the glass ceilings are only broken when a woman reaches the top. I think even having a CREF facility at your workplace to be able to manage your children and work is breaking the glass ceiling. Being heard effectively in a room full of men is breaking the glass ceiling. Hirings and promotions not getting affected is breaking the glass ceiling. Families understanding your professional responsibilities is also breaking the glass ceiling. So and we have laws now that specifically protect women's rights. That's shattering the glass ceiling. I mean, I know it doesn't sound very good to listen to because this sounds like something very basic, something we should not have had to fight for. But could we have pictured this 10 years, 20 years before? I don't think it was that basic and that obvious then, and that unfortunately is the sad reality. So yes, we are making progress, and I think there's still a long way to go before we can say that there are no differences in the opportunities and salaries and rights of women, not just in a workplace, but also in the society. But we have to not just start somewhere. I think we have to accelerate it with maximum push and see this through. I mean, only a couple of days ago, the state of Arkansas in the United States of America passed a bill imposing a complete ban on abortion, except in cases where it is essential to save the life of a mother. Even rape or incest is not a defense for the girl to opt for abortion. And if someone is caught attempting abortion, they can be imprisoned or heavily fined. And I don't think, would this have been possible if more women had a say in the matter? I don't think so. Coming closer home, our apex court in one of their judgments recently asked a question, which stated verbatim, however brutal the man is, can sexual intercourse between a husband and a wife ever be called rape? Thereby insinuating that marital rape is not a reality, and that marriage gives the right to a man to demand whatever he wishes of his wife. Would this have been possible if enough women had a say in the matter? So I'm coming even closer, I think from personal experience I've had, there have been times where in a room full of people and their first or initial meetings, I've had clients or opposing counsels who have addressed my male colleagues more than they've addressed me, irrespective of whether those male colleagues have been juniors or seniors. So over time, they've appreciated my skills and they've respected me and all of that, but it's not been a cakewalk. And I know this, that it's not just about me. This story is relatable to most women, unfortunately. So I think the main difference here is that we as women have to work a lot harder and be more conscious about a lot of other things to gain the respect and even a right to be heard at the table, whereas our male counterparts receive that from the word go. So yes, I believe that more women in the profession will change the attitude and the environment eventually. Moreover, I believe, and I actually hope that with more lawyers and judges being women, we can see an even more humane touch to the laws, to the policies, to the judgments, and hopefully we can help in improving the efficiency of the legal systems. And I say this because we have live examples in front of us where nations being led by women, for example, New Zealand or Estonia, are being run effectively and very efficiently. I mean, I remember reading one of the interviews of the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Ms. Jacinda Ardern, where she said that her empathy and kindness and expressing emotions and feminine behavior seemed to be weaknesses. Well, I think she has shown us all that those are not weaknesses and those are power. Those are the powers of women. And I personally do not think that empathy and kindness and emotions weaken us. I think they become our strength if we let them. And in the legal profession, I think they will only add to the humanity, the humaneness, efficiency, and effectiveness of the law. So yeah, I think there is an interminable list of reasons why more women should be a part of the legal profession and why we have to work to make the profession more conducive to women. But to simplify it, as the late Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, women belong in all places where decisions are being made.
Wow, Garima. I don't think that anybody else would have been able to put it in such an amazing way. And I'm sure this message is going to inspire a lot of people out there. That being said, I'd like to change the question that I was about to ask you. So my question initially was that what advice can be given to new and young lawyers entering the industry and looking, forward to build their careers with the law firm. But specifically, what advice would you like to give to new young women lawyers entering the industry?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think as a new and young lawyer, we've all been there. We've all been just not just new and young. I think we've been new, young, and scared lawyers when we started off in the profession. But I think one of the important things to remember for any new and young lawyer, irrespective of the gender, is for you to remember that your learning does not end with law school. The nature of our profession is simply that it is ever evolving and ever changing. And that means our learning is never ending. No matter how many years any of us have been in the profession, there is always something for us to learn and adapt to. And I think the sooner one realizes this, the more successful one will be, because you will develop a zeal for learning. I think another important thing to remember is that in any other aspect of your life, there will be successes, there will be failures. You will gather memories of triumph, and you will have memories that you wish you can revisit and edit. Oh, do I remember those? But that is okay. That is what will make you a great lawyer, being able to showcase your strengths and being able to admit your faults. Specifically for women, I don't want to say that you should be careful and mindful of the way you speak and how you address people, because I think that is where we are not able to rise up from the differences that we've created in our society. I think women should keep their minds open, speak their hearts out, speak their minds out. And I think, and I don't know if this is a politically correct statement to make, but I think women have a slightly more perceptive mindset, more perceptive to the society and to the happenings around us. And I think we should use that. We should use that as our strength, especially in the legal profession, where we can affect lives, we can make changes to people's livelihoods and the way they see themselves in the society. And I think we should use that fearlessly. We don't need to succumb to the pressures of the workplace. I think we can handle them as well as anybody else, and we should do that. We should do that, and we should not suppress our empathetic side. We should not suppress our emotional side. I would suggest that I have done that. I know that. I don't think I have ever suppressed my emotions or my empathy, even in the corporate law, and I think that should be a surprise. So I would suggest that people do that. Hold on to yourself. It's always good to have a mentor in this industry, because what we learn in law school is mostly theory. So when you start off, and I think a lot of law students get swayed by the brand names of top tier law firms or chambers or companies. And while that can be a deciding factor for everyone, I think a good boss and a good mentor takes you way ahead than a good brand name and a good salary, at least in your initial years, because they are formative years. So if you have the right guidance, you can definitely climb the ladder slightly faster. And having a mentor is good, but I don't think you should lose yourself. Keep your qualities and use the mentorship that you get, and shatter glass ceilings on every step of the ladder and reach the top. Yeah. So I think additionally, it's okay to take time to find out which area of law do you want to practice and specialize in, and you can try and unlearn and learn and fall and get up and all of that. That's all okay. The only thing is, I don't think you should be afraid to try, and I don't think you should be afraid to say, I don't know. uh, law is a very, very humane profession. And if you stay humane, I believe you'll always excel. So I think winning is fun, sure, but winning is not the only point. Wanting to win is the point. Not giving up is the point. Never being complacent with what you've done is the point. So I think winning means you're doing better than you were doing before. I think it's not about being the best. It's about being better than you were yesterday. And this goes out to every new young lawyer who's thinking of stepping into the industry.
Thank you, Garima, yet again for answering that question. Now, talking about your specialization, uh, I'm sure you have inspired a lot of people already with your answers. So, would really like to talk about your opinion here, and what's your take uh, about the domestic and foreign investments in 2021, and how do you think it's going to change maybe 5 years down the line? I mean, with whatever is going on, we actually cannot predict anything, but would just like to know what's your take on it.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on another aspect to your question. I think along with foreign and domestic investments, it's important to look at the mergers and acquisitions market also in India because they go quite a bit hand in hand, at least in India.
Okay.
So speaking about both these things together, I think in 2020, the beginning of 2020, the market for mergers and acquisitions and FTI had evolved rapidly in phases. There were few deals which were larger than the ones in 2019, and the market was picking up momentum. And then the novel COVID-19 hit us, and by late March, I think all the deals had come to a standstill because the focus of all the companies shifted from transactions and from deals to transitioning staff to working from home and shoring up balance sheets and maximizing liquidity and so on and so forth. There was so much to deal with. But I think this year, 2021, will be different, in my opinion. After everyone adjusted to the unprecedented times in 2020, I think by late 2020, we had already started seeing some of the FTI and M&A momentum coming back on. And by the indications that I personally see in the market, there's soon going to be a flurry of deals in 2021. And this is all, I mean, of course, in the uncertain times, but I do feel so. And I think there are several factors contributing to this. As the global economic rebound reaches for a higher gear of growth this year, and persistently low interests are expected to keep the cost of borrowings down, I think all of this combined with the prospects for the company's renewed confidence to deploy capital could continue providing some tailwind for the deals in 2021. I think COVID-19 affected all the industries, some positively, some negatively. Those affected negatively will now be looking for support to stand back on their feet, or they would want to sell and get out. And those affected positively will be looking to expand their business and accelerate their growth. So either ways, M&As are on a rise. So I think additionally, 2020 was a very uncertain year in terms of the geopolitical scenarios as well. I mean, you had the US presidential elections, you had Brexit being the highlight. And then, of course, followed by certain border tensions and political and regulatory constraints in certain sectors. So now I think with a lot of those being concretized or resolved to a great extent, the global markets are also stabilizing. And I think that will reopen the cross-border FTI and M&A markets as well. Also, since 2020 was a slow year, private equity firms are sitting on a ton of money that they would now like to infuse into the market. And that, I think, will contribute significantly to both M&A and FTI. Because I think the sheer amount of private equity dry powder currently speaks volumes about what we're about to see in terms of capital deployment and the M&A market. So all in all, I believe 2021 will be a bull market in terms of M&A deals and FTI transactions. Also, buying and selling companies is not an overnight process. These things take time, they take money, they take effort, and can range anywhere, practically speaking, between 3 months to a year from the start to end of a transaction. So I think this trend is here to stay. I don't think it's only for 2021. It's here for a few years to come. I think 5 years is a very long time right now to estimate anything specifically. But I think one other perspective that COVID-19 has given the companies is they've had a chance to put aside their day-to-day firefighting, and they've gotten a rare glimpse into what their future looks like. And a lot of them did not like what they saw. So an acceleration of growth and transformation of their business, I think, has become a top priority with a lot of companies. And with M&A being the fastest way, or FCI coming in being one of the easier ways to get more capital into the company, I think it's going to be a highly competitive landscape for the right deal or the right price. And I dare say, India is going to be a hub for a lot of foreign investments and M&A in the coming years, because I think India has a lot of untapped potential, and now's the time for it to fast track and shine with more investor-friendly laws and policies. So, yeah, I think I see a rise in FDI and M&A markets in a few coming years.
Oh, thank you so much, Garima, for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and your journey with us. It was a really insightful interview. We really look forward to having a chat with you again in future on some other trending topics in the international legal industry. For our viewers, you heard Garima. She is the woman of 21st century, as I've already mentioned, and she believes in shattering the glass ceilings. And yeah, I mean, she has already inspired you a lot, so I'm sure you're going to like this chat with her. Please like and share this video, and also subscribe to ClickAway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do and you have more coming from industry legal leaders like Garima. This is Bharti for Lex Talk, signing off. Take care. Bye bye.